guys, it's Emma, and I'm back today for you with another video. And today we're doing a book review. This book review is for Ghosts of the Danube. Now, I would like to give a very special shout out to the author for sending me the PDF version of this so that I could review it, and this will be my honest review for Ghosts of the Danube, spoiler free of course. Ghosts of the Danube is set in a post-apocalyptic Europe, and humankind is on the brink of extinction due to a war with a certain enemy of sorts. And two teenagers that we meet, Anna and Donnie, they are living in this village, and we follow them as something very, very sinister unfolds in their own midst. There are trigger warnings for this book, which include death, mentions of child death / murder, domestic violence and abuse, violence just in general, and then gore / mutilation. So like I said, this is going to be an honest, spoiler-free review for Ghosts of the Danube. I hope you guys enjoy. Down below, let me know whether you guys have read any good sci-fi books recently. Okay, so with that being said, let's get right into it. We're gonna start with the prose first. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed about this is that it's very accessible sci-fi. One thing that if you've been on my channel for a little while, you will have heard that the reason why I don't pick up a lot of sci-fi is because it's not very accessible to me. It's very hard for me to visualize the sci-fi elements, and in order for me to go through the story, like the spaceships, the technology, the science behind it. I'm not a very science-oriented person. That's not my major. That's not in my field. Okay? So in order to enjoy sci-fi, the terminology, the world has to be very accessible, and that is something that I will give Ghosts of the Danube. It was very accessible, it was very easy to follow, and I very much appreciated it. And then the premise was really interesting too, because I haven't read a lot of post-apocalyptic books that have been set in anywhere other than America, or North America, I should say. The Road is probably my favorite that I can think of, and that was set in, I want to say, a post-apocalyptic United States. But the Ghost of the Danube is, I believe, set not only in post-apocalyptic England, but then most of it is in post-apocalyptic Romania, so you've also got that to look forward to. The bulk of this video is going to be, unfortunately, the cons that I had with this book. The first one that we're going to talk about is the typos. And this is something that I completely understand if other people see as nitpicky or, you know, not really that important. However, I'm the type of person that once I see a typo, I can't really unsee it. I have the type of brain to where if I read something and I think that something could either be changed or taken out, I do it in my head, and it just happens automatically. And there were a lot of typos in this book. Most of the punctuation errors were, I felt, comma related, which in all honesty, I can't really fault a lot of people for that, and I don't, because when I write papers, I use commas like how I would put a pause when I'm speaking a sentence out loud. So in all honesty, commas I feel like are used or can be used more freelance-like than other punctuation marks. So that's why I'm not putting that much weight on those type of typos. However, another type of category that I found in the typo area was that some of the sentence structures were just strange. I would read a sentence that, in my opinion, would make more sense either split into two or just mashed into one. Very odd sentence structures here that maybe I'm just not aware of, but it did take me out of the story. My second con has to do with the characters in and of themselves. Anna, Donnie, then you've got all the other miscellaneous characters, Anna's father and mother, Anna's friends, the townspeople. They were all very flip-floppy. The two main characters, Anna and Donnie, were more stable, which I was, you know, I do give credit for. However, most of, if not all of the background characters were very unstable in their motives and their wants. I didn't understand why they would switch emotions so fast or so much. And most of the time, the emotions would be switched in the middle of dialogue. With that being said, there weren't enough, in my opinion, transitions between emotions to where the dialogue felt choppy, and therefore, I keep saying emotions, but the atmosphere and the emotions of the characters just seemed very choppy, and it didn't flow very nicely. That's what I'm trying to say. This kind of goes in with the characters. The dialogue in and of itself, the dialogue between characters, like at pivotal points in the story, just seemed obvious at times. However, especially with the teenagers, the teenager talk just sounded cheesy to me. However, that is from my experience. So, I don't know, the dialogue between not only the teenagers, but the dialogue between characters in general just came off as either cheesy or obvious to the plot. Speaking of the plot, con number 3 is the plot. It was flimsy to me. The middle especially dragged immensely for me. When you look at the story as a whole, you have the beginning, which was really action-packed and fast, and then, like I said, the middle dragged. It was a slog for me, and taking that into account, the middle was so much more than the beginning, to where it felt like the only notable action that took place was like a page 242. Meanwhile, this is a 317 page book. The world building also was kind of vague. We didn't really get any background onto, you know, like what happened with everybody else, because as far as we know, all of Europe has been decimated by this war that has put humans on the brink of extinction, and we don't really find out who this war was up against until, you know, we get into the book. So the entire time Donnie he's like a tech kid, he's a tech whiz, and he the entire time is trying to get this teleportation pod in order to get from England to somewhere else where he can get away from the war-ravaged home that he's living in. And the entire time he's got one place in mind: Seoul, South Korea. However, we don't hear about any other place. We don't know what happened to everywhere else regarding this war, and this is supposed to be set in the future, I assume. So the world building, we only ever got building on Romania, which isn't horrible. However, when we're trying to get out of Romania, it helps to build out so that we have a better understanding and idea of where we're trying to get out of Romania to. And then last but not least, the fourth con has to do with the villain. I'm not going to get into spoilers, obviously. However, the villain to me just seemed cheesy. We had a villainous monologue, which I know doesn't bother everybody. However, it is a pet peeve of mine. I think that by having a villainous monologue and therefore explaining why your villain did this, explaining why this happened, why the villain concocted this whole thing, at times I see why it's necessary. However, at other times I think it cheapens your villain to an extent, and it just makes them seem cartoonish and formulaic. And unfortunately that happened with the villain in Ghosts of the Danube. I wasn't a big fan of it, which was a little disappointing considering the types of themes surrounding the sinister thing that happens in this village. I give Ghosts of the Danube 2 stars. It's not objectively bad, it's just not for me, and I've accepted that. However, I do think that this could be for somebody who is looking to get into science fiction, who is probably like me and can't really get a grasp on science fiction terminology. But I believe this book uses science fiction in a more basic way, because the science fiction elements are packed onto things that we see in everyday life, or just things that I feel like that we see more commonly in movies. So again, I would pitch this for people who are looking for an easy science fiction novel to get into. So you guys, that was my spoiler-free review for Ghosts of the Danube. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to read my review for this, I'll have my Goodreads link down below, along with the ambiance that I used to listen to this. With that being said, you guys, I hope that you will tune in to more of my videos in the future, that you guys are staying safe, and that you guys have a good rest of your day. Goodbye!